Hey everybody! Welcome to week 3 of our at-home distance learning. I hope you all have had a great past couple of weeks and that you've been able to kind of get into a new routine, a new way of doing things. I know that this is different, it's hard, it's not what any of us are used to. And before I really get started with talking about this week, I want to let you guys know how proud we all are of you. I'm proud of you, Miss Hewitt's proud of you, Miss Pearson's proud of you. We've talked about how proud we are of y'all for the work that you're doing, the fact that you're still trying your best. This is new to all of us. And we want you to know that not only do we miss you, but we're also proud of the hard work that you are putting in. We do see it, we notice it. We've heard back from several of your parents about the experiences that you've had the past couple of weeks of our assignments and trying to work through them, and it seems like that we're having a pretty successful time without a lot of struggle, so that's great. If you do find that you're struggling, of course you can reach out. We're still your teachers. I'm still here for you even if we're not at school. So don't ever hesitate to reach out, to email, to say I need help, because that is what we are here for. Always here for you as long as we are your teacher, and even past that, we are here for you. So, with that being said, let's start talking about week 3. Week 3, we have a certain type of genre that we're going to be looking at. It's called argumentative text. So when you open your Wonders book, you are going to see that the genre for this week is argumentative text. What does that mean? You might be thinking, are we going to be reading about an argument between two people? Not really. Kind of, but not really. Argumentative text is nonfiction, okay? So it's based on real information. And typically what that is when an author writes about something that they have strong feelings about, a certain topic, and they share their opinion about that topic. So if you think author's purpose, the author is either trying to persuade you, to inform you of something, or to entertain you. Argumentative text, the author's purpose is usually going to be to persuade you. They're going to give you information about a certain type of topic to where you're able to clearly see what they think about it and what their opinion is, and then they're going to try to convince you to share the same opinion with the information that they give you and whatever it is that you're reading about that topic. So argumentative text, when we get to the walkthrough from the Wonders book, I'll give you more information about how to navigate through that because it is kind of different. But that is our genre focus for this week. We also have a few skills that we're going to be focusing on. We are going to be focusing on text features, which goes hand in hand with informational text, nonfiction. You all know that. Your social studies books, your science books, they all are full of text features because those text features help to organize the information into a way that makes sense for you as the reader. So when it's a nonfiction informational text with all of this information, all of these facts, all of these pictures and diagrams and all of this different information, the author uses text features to help organize all of that information so that you can see what's going on and so that you can find the information that you're looking for. You guys know all about that. You are really good at identifying those text features. You're mostly good at using them to help you find the information that you're looking for. But later in the video, I am going to do a walkthrough of the different text features. It'll be on the screen and what to be looking for and how to use them. The next skill that we're going to be focusing on is point of view. So we just talked about that with argumentative text, you are seeing an author's point of view or how they think about a certain topic, what their opinions are. That ties directly in. Point of view can be tricky. You guys struggle sometimes with trying to figure out what point of view is the story being told from. So I'm going to do a walkthrough with this handy dandy poster back here of point of view. I'll remind you of the examples that we've talked about this year so that you can kind of help yourself to refresh and to understand, oh yeah, I do know how point of view works. It's tricky, but it's not impossible. The third thing for this week, or the third skills focus for this week is root words. This is something that we talked about in week 1. So if you go back to the week 1 video, you can do another refresh of that if you need it. Root words is something that's always good to study and to pay attention to, because it helps you to understand the meaning of words and where they come from. How did that word get its meaning? That's going to help you in life with context clues. If you can recognize the root and then how it's attached to a prefix or a suffix, it can help you to figure out the meaning of a word that you might not otherwise know the meaning to. So week 1 video gives you a refresh of that if you need to go back to it. So just like last week and the week before, if you go to the description box under the title of this video, you will see timestamps that are labeled with point of view, text features, workbook walkthrough. That's going to help you if you're looking for certain information in this video. If you need help with point of view, if you need to go back and rewatch a certain part, that will help you to go to the exact part of the video that you're trying to watch, so that you don't have to watch the whole thing all over again. So that will be there just like last week. And oh yeah, shout out to Ashlyn Rising. She took our challenge last week to count how many times that I said the word and she counted that I said it 38 times. I honestly don't know if that's the exact number, because I was not able to go back and count all of the times that I said it without losing track. So we're going to go with the fact that Ashlyn was right. So kudos to Ashlyn for paying attention. If somebody would like to try to count it this week, hopefully it'll be less than 38, but we'll see. Give it a try. Let me know how many times that you count it. Pay attention to what I'm saying, and you might just get a shout out in next week's video. So with all of that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump right into going over our skills and going through our workbook. Alrighty, let's talk about point of view. Point of view is something that we have been reviewing and talking about for all of 5th grade. Every time that we read a novel or that we read a story or a passage, typically we talk about the point of view. Who is telling the story? What point of view is the story or is the passage being told from? This is a popular test question on SOLs. It's a popular test question on Power Test. And it's just something that you need to be able to figure out as the reader in order to figure out how to comprehend the story and what you should be paying attention to in the story, okay? So point of view can be kind of tricky. It can be tricky because we don't always understand what it means. Point of view simply means perspective. Now, that might also be kind of tricky because as a 5th grader, you may not totally understand what perspective means. So let's talk about the example that we have used all year and that I started off teaching you about what perspective meant. Let's go back to that to kind of refresh your brain. Let's use the playground example. You're outside at recess playing with your friends like you always do, and something happens. Something happens that upsets you, that upsets your friend. There's an argument, maybe there's a basketball game going on and somebody's not playing by the rules or they're not following directions, whatever it might be. We know that these type of things happen. And you and your friend have gotten into this argument, right? So you come to me or Miss Hewitt or Miss Pearson to tell us about what happened. Your friend also comes to either all 3 of us or one of us to tell us what happened. Do you always both tell the same exact story? No. How does that happen? You both experience the same thing. You are part of the same situation. You are both part of the same argument. So why do your stories not always match up? Well, that's where we talk about a little thing called perspective. The way that you tell the story is based off of how you see it, how you experienced it, what your feelings were, whose fault you think it might have been. You and your friend might tell it in 2 different ways based on how you experienced it. So when you tell one of your teachers what happened, you might leave out the part where you said something mean to your friend and then they said something back. You might only tell us about the mean thing that your friend said, but not about what you said. On the other hand, your friend might leave out the part of what they said and only tell us what you said. Hopefully you understand where I'm going with that. We don't always tell every little bit of what's happening. We also can't tell what the other person was thinking. You don't know how your friend really feels. You don't know what's going on inside of their head. So you can't share that with us. You can only share what's going on inside of your head. That's why when you guys have arguments on the playground, we like to try to have you talk to each other and work it out so that you can understand the other person's perspective, and that helps us to solve the issue. So perspective. Point of view comes from perspective. Who is telling the story? How involved are they in what's going on, or what is their opinion on the topic that they are talking about? So point of view applies to fiction and nonfiction. For nonfiction, which is what we're going to be focusing on more so this week in the Wonders Workbook, it's more of an argumentative text kind of thing. If the author's purpose is to persuade, if they are writing about a certain topic that they have feelings about, that they want to persuade you to think or feel the same way that they do, they are going to talk about their perspective, how they like to think about it. They're going to share facts and information with you that support their opinion, their perspective. Well, we all have different perspectives. So another person might have different feelings and different opinions about the same topic. They're going to share information that supports their opinions and their thoughts and their feelings. So for nonfiction, point of view can have to do with author's purpose of persuading, argumentative text, which you will see great examples of that in the Wonders book for this week. It also can have to do with what type of information is being shared, if it's an informational text or if it's more of a biography or autobiography, that type of thing. So we'll get to that in a minute. For fiction, it simply depends on who is telling the story. Point of view can change in a fictional book. If you've read the book Wonder, that's a great example of being able to see the same story through different characters' eyes. You get more information. We read The Lemonade War at the beginning of the school year, and we talked about how Evan and Jesse, we got to see both perspectives because of the point of view that the story was being told from. So let's go through the different types. I taught you guys an easy way of looking at point of view. Point of view is very selfish, okay? It's very selfish. I'm always first, you're always second, they're always third. I'm going to put myself first. That's how point of view thinks. So what does that mean? First person point of view. It's when a character within the story is telling their own experiences and thoughts. So they're only telling it from their point of view. We don't get to see what the other characters are thinking. We don't get to see what the other characters' thoughts are, feelings, opinions. We don't get to see any of that. We're only getting to see it from one character's perspective. So they're going to use words like I, me, mine, we, us. So when the playground situation happens and you come to your teachers to tell your side of the story, if that's all we get, then we only know about that event from a first person point of view told by you. Okay? Second person, hopefully you can see this. Second person, it's when the story is told directly to the reader. So there are fictional examples of second person point of view. We just don't see them a lot in 5th grade. This is when the author is talking directly to you as the reader. A better example of this would be nonfiction. You would see more of a nonfiction point of view, second person point of view in 5th grade. So what does that mean? A recipe, a set of instructions on how to put something together. That's going to be second person point of view because they're talking directly to you as the reader. You should bake the cookies at 350 degrees for 15 minutes. You should put this together before you put this part together so that it fits. They're talking directly to you as the reader. That brings us down to third person. The story is told from hopefully you can see this, from a narrator that is not part of the story, only an outside perspective. So this is when the author, the narrator, is not involved at all, but they're watching everything happen from the outside looking in. So back to the Lemonade War. We had a third-person narrator who was able to tell us how Evan was feeling, how Jesse was feeling, why they were doing the things that they were doing in the story, which is why some of you had a hard time picking a side, because you were able to see both perspectives, right? But the narrator wasn't involved at all. They weren't selling lemonade. They weren't trying to make the most money. The narrator was not involved. They were just watching what was happening within the story and telling us everything, okay? Playground example. You and your friend have had this argument. You've had this bad situation that you're telling us teachers about. When we hear from both of you, we're probably also going to ask the other kids around you, hey, what happened? Did you see what happened? Those kids would be a good example of a third person point of view because they weren't involved. They just happened to see whatever happened between you and your friend. So they're going to use words like he, she, they, names of people that are involved because they weren't part of it. So they might say, he did this, she said that, then they started arguing, but you won't hear them say I or me or us because they weren't involved. They're only telling us what they saw. So that's a good way to kind of think about perspective. You notice I have some not so nicely drawn sunglasses. I'm not an artist, not a YouTuber, not an artist, but I did try. I have some sunglasses here. Why did I draw sunglasses? Well, perspective is whose eyes are we seeing the story through, okay? So we're seeing it through a point of view, whose experiences or whose feelings or thoughts are we getting to see, okay? That's the best way to think about point of view. Point of view is part of real life. When you're talking about something that happened, I'm getting your perspective, your point of view. Somebody else might tell me something totally different about the same exact thing because they have a different point of view or perspective than what you do. Because we all have different feelings, we all have different thoughts, opinions, and sometimes we don't always know everything about what happened. So, point of view can be tricky, but that's a good way for you to think about it. Everybody's perspective and what we know and what we see and what we experience is different, okay? We're all different, so that gives us all different points of view. That's why you have to pay attention when you're reading to what kind of clue words are being used and how much information you're getting. If you're only getting one side of the story, if you're only seeing one character's thoughts and feelings, then most likely you're looking at a first person point of view. If you are seeing multiple characters' feelings and thoughts, then you are most likely getting a third person point of view. For nonfiction, that could be the difference between a biography and an autobiography. That could be a recipe or instructions, an instruction manual. Point of view, first, second, and third. I'm first, you're second, they're third. It's all about the perspective that you're seeing. So hopefully this helps you to understand a little bit better. You guys know about text features. You all are pretty good at identifying them. You are usually pretty good at remembering how to use them. But let's still take this opportunity to go through the different types of text features and talk about how an author uses them to organize or categorize information and how you can use them in order to find the information that you are looking for or to better understand what you are reading about. So let's start with bold text, italics, highlighted text, and colored text. These are the ways that an author makes certain words stand out from all of the rest. So if it's a certain name, date, event, term that they want you to pay attention to, they're going to use bold text, italics, highlighted text, or colored text to make you pay attention to that particular word or phrase. Graphics, photos, and illustrations. So these are your visuals for those of us who need to see things that are going to connect with the information that we are reading about. For a lot of us, we need to be able to see it in order to understand it. So this just helps you to better understand what you're reading. Bullet points. Sometimes the author uses bullet points, and in this case, they quite literally put the bullet points as bullet points. Sometimes an author uses bullet points to make information more concise. So what that means is they want to make it stand out, but not write it in a big, huge paragraph. It's typically going to be main ideas or main details that are in bullet points. Details that support a main idea is the better way to describe that. Titles and subtitles, or headings and subheadings. So obviously a title or a heading is going to cover whatever information is being talked about in the entire passage as a whole. So whatever title or heading the author is using should cover all of the information. But then subtitles and subheadings can be really useful for putting all of the information into certain categories. So let's say that there is a passage that you're reading about an animal. The subtitles or the subheadings might categorize the information into different heading or different subheadings based on what you're looking for. So it might be that one subheading talks about the animal's environment. Another subheading might talk about their diet or what they eat. Another one might talk about their physical appearance, their adaptations. So it just makes it to where you can find certain information a little bit easier. If you're trying to answer a question, the subheadings is a good way to know where to look to find the answer to that question. Table of contents is going to be at the front of an informational book or textbook. It just makes it easier to find the information that you're looking for once again, so that you don't have to flip through the whole book. You go to the table of contents, you find what you're looking for. Captions, diagrams, and maps. Captions. This is the information that goes with a photo. If you know anything about social media, if you know about posting pictures to Facebook or Instagram, or maybe posting videos to TikTok, the caption that you're putting with that video or picture usually describes whatever it is that's in the video or picture. So it's the same thing here. A caption describes whatever is happening in the photo or whatever the photo is representing. Diagrams, it's just when you label something. And then maps, we know all about maps from social studies. These are just ways that an author can further explain whatever information that you are reading about. Tables, charts, and graphs. This is another way to share information or data. We use these in social studies. We use them in science. We use them in math. And we even used graphs in reading this year to graph our test data. So you all have good experience with this. It's a great way to be able to see data or to share data. Glossary. This is going to be in the back of an informational text or textbook. It is where you're going to look if you're looking for the definition of important keywords or terms. So in this case, you're looking at terms that have to do with space, Saturn, space, star, sun, our solar system. It is the key terms or words, and then your definitions that go with them. Remember, text features are there to help you better understand the information that is being shared and to help you find what you are looking for. We're going to take a few minutes to do a quick walkthrough of our Wonders workbook pages, just like we have for the past 2 weeks. This is not going to be as long or as in-depth as it has been, because I feel like you should be getting into a routine and into the habit of working through this. So as far as like me numbering the paragraphs and that type of thing goes, I'm not going to do that, but you should do it in your workbook. You should continue to highlight, number everything that you've been doing. What I want to spend more time on this week is pointing out what you're looking at. That sounds kind of silly, but we are looking at argumentative text. And I talked about in the beginning of the video that doesn't necessarily mean that you're reading about an argument, okay? What it means is that two different opinions are being shared kind of at the same time. So let's talk about what we're looking at. You have, obviously we have some oranges over here. You have a heading, should plants and animals from other places live here? Then you have a couple of subheadings, new arrivals welcome, a growing problem. And then you have one over here too, but we'll come back to that in a few minutes. So a growing problem, new arrivals welcome. What I want to make sure that you understand is that these are two different opinions. So I want you to kind of think of it like two different authors wrote about this, and then somebody took the opinion from each author and decided to put it together into one passage. So new arrivals welcome is one opinion by one person, and then a growing problem is going to be like the opposite opinion from a different person. So it's kind of like you're reading from two different authors at the same time, and they each have their own opinion that they're trying to persuade you to think about or agree with. So I wanted to make sure that we understood that. Taking notes. Before you begin reading, preview the title and the subheadings, which we just did. Then make a prediction about what you think you will learn. Write your prediction here. So you're going to do that for yourself. You're going to make note of interesting words and key details the first time that you read through this. Anything that stands out to you, you're going to write it down, just like the past 2 weeks. We do have an essential question here. How do natural events and human activities affect the environment? Read two different views on the arrival of new species into the United States. That's something to think about. We know that natural events like tornadoes and hurricanes affect our environment, and we know that humans also affect it when we do things like polluting the earth, creating a lot of waste, cutting down trees, building, housing developments, building buildings in areas that were a part of nature. Those type of activities have an effect on the environment, but they're going to want you to think about that even more so when it comes to moving animal species from their natural habitats to places where they don't naturally live. Okay, so we have 4 paragraphs on this page, 1, 2, 3, and 4. With the first 2, you're going to write the author's claim about non-native species. So what does this author think about them? What is this author's point of view? Here where it says point, this is going to kind of help guide you with that. So in the first 2 paragraphs, you're going to try to see if you can figure out what they are claiming, this particular author. Then you're going to underline the details that support that claim. So whatever details help you figure it out, you will underline them. Paragraphs 3 and 4, ask and answer questions. Write a question that you can ask to check your understanding about the plan to control insects and pests. Circle the answer. So you're going to think kind of backwards, like you're the teacher again. Find information about the plan to control insects and pests, circle it, and then create a question that would be an answer to. So almost like you're creating a test question. Author's craft. Why does the author talk about both invasive non-native species and helpful non-native species? So think about why the author would bring up non-native species that are helpful and then ones that also would possibly cause problems in our environment. Think about why this author would talk about both instead of just one or the other. Okay. So after you have read that first opinion, that first point a couple of times and answered the question, or answered the questions that go with it, you're going to flip to the second page, a growing problem. That's our next subheading. A growing problem, that should give you a clue as to what this author's opinion is going to be. So we have 5 paragraphs, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Just like on the first page, you're going with the first 4 paragraphs, you're going to think about what this author's claim or opinion is. So this should help you, and then the first 4 paragraphs should also help you. You'll underline your text evidence that you use to decide what this author's opinion is. Paragraph 5, root words. How does the Latin root clues, meaning to shut, help you understand the meaning of conclusion? So first you need to find conclusion over here in paragraph 5. And then I want you to think about what it means to shut or close something. And I'll give you a hint. When we write papers and we talk about an introduction paragraph and then body paragraphs and a conclusion paragraph, think about where that conclusion paragraph is in the paper and what the purpose of it is, what you're supposed to be doing at that point in the paper. There's your hint. Author's craft. How does the author help you understand how invasive species got to this country? So how does the author explain that process to you? How did they make it make sense? That's something for you to think about. There's no really one correct answer for that. Okay, then you're going to come over to the last page where you don't see paragraphs. Instead, it says read charts and headings. So here's your chart. And you notice that in your chart, you have different headings: species, native land, when and how they were introduced to the United States, positive impact, negative impact. So for 4 different species, they're going to tell you where they came from, when and how they came to the United States, how they've positively impacted and negatively impacted. So this chart doesn't really focus on one particular opinion. It kind of brings it all together. Look at the chart. Which species do you think had more of an impact on people than on the environment? Explain your answer. So you need to look at the chart and figure out, based on the impacts, which one impacted us more as people. It could be in a negative way or in a positive way or in both. Okay, author's craft. Why do you think this chart was used to end the selection? Think about it. Why, after you read the 2 different opinions, why do you think that whoever put all of this together decided to add this chart in? How does this help you maybe process the information that you got from each opinion? Once again, there isn't just one correct answer to this question. It's just to get you thinking about the purpose of the chart and how it helps you to summarize what you read. With that being said, you're going to come down to summarize, and you're going to use your notes to write a short summary of the topic and the opposing points of view presented in the selection. You do not have to actually write this if you do not want to. You can just share it with someone verbally, but you do need to make sure that you're talking about both points of view. Think about the main points that you got from each side, the point and the counterpoint. Also, you're going to think about whether your prediction was correct at the beginning. Okay, let's talk a little bit about vocabulary. This is going to be pretty similar to what you've been doing the past couple of weeks. We have our terms. You notice these are highlighted and they're in bold. Those are text features that make them stand out. We have our terms from the text that we just read. You can look back in the text, find them, reread them, use the context clues. They also gave you extra context clues by using each word in a sentence. You're going to decide what you think the word means and then answer the question based off of what you think it means. Root words. We're coming back to root words. It's the basic word part that gives a word its main meaning. It helps you, if you know the meaning of a root, when you see it in a word that you don't recognize, it can help you figure out the meaning of that word. So they're giving you an example, invasive, out of the text. And then, so they're kind of showing you a good example here. And then they want you to use these roots below, nativus, to be born, and avis, bird, to tell us what non-native on page 59 and avian on page 60 mean. So nativus, to be born, avis, bird. Go back to page 59 and 60, find them, use your context clues, use these meanings, and decide what they mean. You can also list other words that you know that contain those roots. Any words you can think of. If you think of a word, I want you to also look at the meaning and think about what does that word mean and how does it connect to the meanings of the root that is found in the word. You can keep flipping to pages. If you keep flipping through the next few pages, you're going to see extra activities that go along with argumentative text. You're free to explore this however you would like to, or you're free to close the book and be done for this week. It's totally up to you. I hope this was helpful, and I hope that you learned a little bit more about argumentative text, point of view, and a little bit more about which species are native to the United States and which ones are not. All right, fifth graders, that is it for this week. I hope that this video will be helpful to you in getting through the assignments for the week. You all can comment, you can email, you can reach out to me in any way that is most helpful for you. I hope y'all have a fantastic week, and I will see y'all in next week's video. See you later.